Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Explainer. Today, we're doing something pretty exciting. We're going to unpack the absolute foundational building blocks of our entire global economy. We're talking about the very things that make human civilization tick, and honestly, why the survival of our planet depends entirely on how we choose to manage them.
Okay, let's jump right in. Here's what we're covering today. First up, defining our valuable resources. Then we'll hit the core economic problem, followed by why we need efficiency. After that, we'll look at the three central economic questions, and finally, we'll wrap up by comparing global economic systems.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, defining our valuable resources.
To wrap our heads around the economy, we've kind of got to start with the Earth itself, right? Our natural environment is basically this giant, incredible storehouse of usable substances. But here's a really crucial distinction you need to keep in mind. Things like forests, the soil, deep underground mines, they all have utility, but they only become economically valuable resources when people actually step in and do something with them. So a wild forest has obvious beauty and environmental value, sure, but when humans actively culture it, gather products to sell, or maybe a company patents an entirely new invention based on those products, that is the exact moment those materials transform into resources with actual economic value.
And this flowchart lays it out perfectly. You can see the split here between natural and man-made resources, but I want to draw your attention to the most vital piece of this whole puzzle, sitting right under the biotic category, human beings. We are literally the most important resource of all. Why? Because it's human intelligence and human labor that actually transforms those naturally occurring substances into usable things. Without us, the human resource, everything else just sits there.
Now, when we look specifically at natural resources, it's always this massive tug-of-war between what we have and what we want. On one hand, we have renewable resources. These are your flow resources. Think solar energy, or forests that we can actually replenish through efforts like afforestation. On the flip side, we have non-renewable, or exhaustible resources, like fossil fuels and minerals. These literally take millions of years to form in the Earth. So that means their stock permanently decreases every single time we use them.
Moving on to Section 2, the core economic problem.
So, here is the central conflict of today's explainer. What actually happens when a rapidly growing human population starts running out of those exhaustible resources? Well, this isn't exactly a new worry. Way back in 1932, Professor Lionel Robbins from the London School of Economics defined this beautifully. He pointed out that the whole economic problem is fundamentally about relative scarcity and choice. It's a foundational issue of human civilization that we simply can't ignore.
Just look at the contrast here. On the left side, human wants are unlimited. They're recurring, like hunger, and they just keep multiplying day by day as our civilization advances. But on the right side, our means, our land, labor, and capital are strictly limited. And here's the real kicker. Those limited means have alternative uses. You can use a plot of land to grow wheat, or you can use it to grow cotton, but you generally can't do both at full capacity. Because our wants are infinite but our resources have alternative uses, every single economy is forced to make really hard choices to economize its resources.
Which brings us right to Section 3, why we absolutely need efficiency. You see, this problem of choice isn't just some academic theory you debate in a classroom. It has real, life-or-death consequences for our environment. I want you to pause for a second and really think about this question. When finite, limited resources crash headfirst into infinite, endlessly growing human demand, what is the actual result on the ground? Let's visualize this for a second. I want you to picture this, a state of abundant, untouched natural resources, a lush, vibrant green forest just teeming with life. The air is perfectly clean, the water is pristine, the ecosystem is in total balance. This is our natural capital at its absolute peak.
But if we make the wrong economic choices, if we mismanage this incredible wealth, that vibrant green fades away. It gets replaced by choking smog, severe pollution, and widespread habitat destruction. And this isn't just an oops moment. This is the stark, visceral reality of inefficient resource use. Simply put, inefficiency leads directly to pollution, climate change, and the rapid degradation of the very planet we live on.
But here's the good news. By utilizing resources efficiently, we create a sustainable bridge between human wants and planetary health. When we prioritize efficiency, that smog clears up. We shift toward clean energy factories, high-tech recycling plants, and communities that can actually thrive in balance with nature. So our source material breaks down exactly why this efficiency is a total game changer into 5 key points. First up, it helps us overcome resource scarcity, making sure we actually have finite materials left for future generations. Second, it minimizes environmental impact by actively preventing pollution and habitat destruction. Third, it drives serious economic benefits. It lowers production costs and boosts productivity. Fourth, it ensures social equity, reducing disparities by promoting a much fairer distribution of goods. And fifth, it sparks massive innovation and job creation in incredible green sectors like recycling and resource recovery.
All right, let's look at Section 4, the 3 central economic questions.
So how do we actually pull this off? How do we get to that sustainable future? Well, every single society, no matter its size or government, has to answer 3 unavoidable questions. What to produce, and how much of it, how to produce it, and for whom to produce it. Remember, because resources are limited, if a society decides to produce more of one thing, let's say military equipment, it literally forces them to take resources away from producing something else, like healthcare services or education.
And when we look at that second question, how to produce, it basically boils down to choosing between 2 distinct techniques. Does a society use a labor-intensive technique, which relies heavily on human workers, or do they use a capital-intensive technique, leaning on advanced machinery? The guiding principle here is always efficiency. You want to produce the maximum possible output at the absolute minimum cost, using the least amount of those precious, scarce resources we talked about earlier.
Finally, Section 5, comparing global economic systems.
Because while those 3 central questions are exactly the same everywhere, the way different governments and societies choose to answer them varies wildly. Check out the summary. In a capitalist economy, the primary driver is profit and purchasing power. They produce what's in demand by the people who can afford it, using whatever method is cheapest. A socialist economy flips that, focusing on societal need, producing essential goods and often prioritizing labor just to prevent unemployment. And then we have the mixed economy, which tries to walk this tightrope, balancing the profit-driven efficiency of the market with the protective, need-based interventions of the government.
So here's the big takeaway. Regardless of whether an economy is capitalist, socialist, or mixed, true economic development relies entirely on efficiency. An economy has to ensure that resources do not sit idle and are not misused. True efficiency in distribution means you've reached a point where you can't make one person better off without making someone else worse off. No waste, just maximum utility.
Which leaves us with one final thought to wrap things up. We know our resources are scarce, and we definitely know our wants are infinite. When you look at the different ways human societies organize themselves, which economic system do you believe is actually best equipped to manage the massive environmental impacts and intense resource scarcity we are facing right now? It's a huge question, but it's one we all need to be asking. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the systems around you, and I'll catch you next time.